I just want to come on and say hello and give a little introduction. Today I'm going to do a tutorial video on how to make a loom at home with some simple supplies so you can create something like this from what you have around the house. Alright, I hope you enjoy. Have fun! Today you'll need scissors, a ruler, a pencil, some string that's not stretchy, masking tape, cardboard. I like to use a comb, but you can also use a fork as well. And then some material. I have a couple different types of material, some yarn, and then a couple sticks that I found outside. For this next part, you'll need a piece of cardboard, measuring tape or a ruler, and a pencil, along with some scissors. First, you'll want to put the measuring tape or the ruler along your cardboard at the top or the bottom to start. And if you're using a larger piece of cardboard, about 10 inches or so across, then make sure that you have an inch on each side. If you're using a smaller piece like I will be later in this video, then a half an inch is fine. You just don't want your notches too close to the outside of your piece of cardboard. Then your notches should be about every 1/4 inch. So at every 1/4 inch you'll make a little line. And you'll continue to do this all the way across, and you'll do it on the top as well. On this next part, you will use your scissors and you will cut your little slits. Your slits should be about a half an inch up. If you do them too small, the cardboard will bend when you have your string in between each piece. Next, you will take your non-stretchy string. This really can be any type of string. It can even be yarn. And you want to tape it to the back, right next to that notch that's closest to the edge. And you're going to go down the front and then what I like to call next door on your little slit. And then down, and then you go next door, and you continue to do this until you have a bunch of straight lines of string going across the front of your loom. Once you have your loom strung, you will use a thin strip of cardboard and you will place it underneath all of the strings. This will make sure that you give yourself enough space to knot the bottom of the loom, the little strings, when you're all done weaving. So it gives you just a little extra space. It also allows it to lift the string a little, which will make it easier for weaving. Next, you'll want to take your needle or the thread, if you do not have a needle, and go under about half or 1/4 of the strings. I like to leave a little tail of the string and tuck it under that strip of cardboard. This makes sure it doesn't go loose. It also allows extra string to knot when you're all done. Make sure that your needle goes over, under, over, under, over, under, all the way across. And then you will go back with your needle and you will do the same. So if you ended on top or over the next string, you go under, over, under, over, and you go back and forth all the way. This is what makes your weaving nice and tight. Go ahead and continue to do this for anywhere between 4 and 8 rows. I like to make it the same color that I will make my tassels, which I'll show you in a couple minutes. See how I have a little arch that goes across right there? Use that to make sure you're not doing your weaving too tight. Then grab your fork or your comb and gently push down on the string. It might be a little loose on the edge, but it is better for it to be loose than too tight. If it's too tight, then you'll end up with an hourglass. Make sure you are doing over, under, and continuing that pattern until the end of your string or until you feel you have enough there. The next thing you'll want to do is take a bunch of string that's all the same size. It should be double the length that you want for your fringe. I take about 4 to 6 pieces at a time. I go over 2 strings, tuck it under one side, tuck it under the other side, and then I gently pull down. You don't want to pull too tight because if you do, then it'll pinch those 2 strings together. Then you continue to do this all the way across. Here's a little bit of a closer look. You would continue this method all the way across. For the sake of this video, I'm only going to do a couple of them. To make your tassels fuller, you can add another layer on top. I like to offset it, so I like to do them in between each of the ones that I did on the first layer. You can also use 2 different colors like this one here. In the next couple sections, I'm going to just fast forward through my weaving process where I fill up my loom using the traditional over, under method. In this section, I took an old dress that I no longer wore and I cut it into strips. I used those strips as I would yarn and I wove them through as well. You can do this with old reusable bags, you could do it with old t-shirts, dresses, whatever you have around the house. I also had a material that I cut into long strips like a ribbon. You can use a ribbon or lace for this method as well. And you just do the over, under, except you leave the 2 ends open or loose on the side. This last type of weaving I'm going to show you is more of a loop weaving. So you see I tuck one end underneath and then the other end I go over 3 pieces and then under that one. So I kind of loop it around that one, and then I'll do the same and I'll count off. So including the one I loop, there's 1, 2, 3. And on that third one, I'll loop under that one again. Make sure that you are having the string go in the same direction. So in this case, I loop it and then it becomes underneath that loop that I created. And then I'm going to go all the way across. I'm going to come and return back and it will give a braided look to my loom. This method is best for thick yarn, wool roving, or any thick material that you might use. If you only have thin yarn, you can also use multiple layers or multiple strands of it and do the same thing for a braided look. I'm going to finish my weaving with that material that I cut into strips from an old dress. Please leave 1.5 to 2 inches at least on the top so you have enough room to knot and put your dowel or your stick through. I'm also finishing my tassels, but that should really be done in the beginning. Take your scissors and start to clip the strings at the bottom. I usually just do every other one, but you can clip all of them all the way across if you want. Make sure that you leave as much space as possible so that you can tie the strings together. It is best to leave it on the loom when you do this so that the whole thing doesn't come apart before it's knotted. Now begin to unhook the top loops from your loom. Be gentle because your weaving can come undone if you're not too careful. It is a bit hard to see here in the video, but I take each individual loop and I knot it, making a loop knot. You can also take 2 loops and tie them together in a double knot, making sure to leave enough space for your dowel or stick to go through. Now that you have the top all looped, go ahead and find loose string or material on the back and knot it to each other. Make sure not to do it too tight because you don't want to warp your weaving. You can also take a needle and put the spare string through the eye of the needle and tuck it under other pieces that are already woven, and this helps hide and secure those extra pieces. Once you're done with that, flip your weaving over and find a stick that's a little bit longer than your weaving. Go ahead and put the stick through each one of those loops. Once all of those loops are secure on the branch, you can shorten the branch, cut it, break it off. You can also slide those hoops over so that they're more central. Then take another long piece of string and attach it to either end so that your weaving doesn't fall off, and you can hang it. The last thing you need to do is flip it over and just trim any extra little strings that might be poking and showing through the front. And then you're all done. Here are 3 examples of ones that I have made so far, and I hope that you are able to enjoy the process and make some of your own.